Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Keith Vitale, and welcome to Psychic Podcast. I'm so excited again to have my good friend, a true martial arts legend, Mike Genova, back on the podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be focusing on him as an instructor. But let me tell you just a little bit about him before we get started. Now, one of my goals, of course, is to reintroduce grace like Mike Genova to a whole new generation of martial artists. And Mike was a top 10 fighter, rated by all the karate magazines as a top 10 fighter in the country when we competed. He's a nationally, almost world renowned martial arts instructor. And also he's the owner operator of Genova Family Karate, which is one of the most successful karate schools in all of South Carolina. Welcome, Mike. How you doing?
I'm great, Keith. Nice to see you again.
Well, good, good. I'm so glad to have you back on. And I really enjoy just, just talking stories and strategies and tips and the whole bit. I thought this would be a great time for you to share some of your tips with, a new generation of not only fighters, but instructors. But before we do, let me just talk about how much I respect you as an instructor. Now, remember before I said he's a highly acclaimed martial arts instructor. And you can ask anybody in the country about Mike Genova, and they'll talk about him because he's trained so many regional and national champions. We're going to talk about one of them in a second, Andrew. But here's how much respect I have for you. When I decided to write my own kids' illustrated book, it's called Victor Stops a School Bully. I co-wrote it with my 10-year-old grandson, Sam. One of the happiest times of my life. I needed the instructor in the book, which is illustrated, it's cartoons and illustrated figure, to guide Victor throughout the book. I didn't choose me. I chose my good friend, Mike Genova. So I was so honored to have you in my book. I am even more honored that you've taken the book, you framed it and showcased it in your karate school, your beautiful karate school. And if anybody listening, if you ever get a chance to get to Columbia, South Carolina, I want you to check out Mike Genova's karate school. The whole school is beautiful. Check out not only the book, but it's like walking through a museum of awards and plaques. And later and more in depth in other episodes, you're going to find out why this guy is why he's truly a legend in the martial arts. So I want you to talk a little bit about one of your current guys that you're training right now, Andrew, and what did he go to at the Waco Championships in Italy or something? Tell me about him.
Yes, his name is Andrew Ferrara. He is one of my young men. He goes to St. John Newman Catholic School, and I'll start there with his grades and his behavior at school are absolutely at the highest marks. And I train him extra. He goes to Simpsonville, South Carolina, trains with one of my former guys, Ray Thompson, and his son, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. In fact, he'll be going. He goes like once a month and trains with them as well. And we're all on the same page with the Spence boys who also train him. And we're all trying to get him ready. He wants to be Keith Talley. I mean, he's told me that he wants to be number one. And in order to do that, I told him he had to, do things like that. And we work on him. And he just got back from Venice, Italy, where he was there for almost 10 days with the Waco Championships. He made it to the final 8 in his age group. There were over 30 countries represented with
Wow.
boys his age, and it was wonderful. We got to watch the fights live, which is in today's world is incredible that we got to see that. And he still has a long way to go. He's 11-year-old. He's got a long way to go, but he's doing it the right way. He still plays soccer and he still has some, boy interests, but he's very dedicated to his martial arts and he knows his goal. And his goal is to be number one. And you have a lot to do with that, Keith. As he came up, we told him about you, showed him your magazine, showed him your films, and that's what he wants
Thanks,
in
man.
his life in the martial arts.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with him and his wonderful dad, and I think he's going to be a world champion one day. He's so dedicated, so talented. And guess what his favorite technique is? The sidekick, which we love. That's why we love the guy even more. And hopefully I can even put some film in showing his sidekick, which is just phenomenal. This is what a great opportunity for this episode for you to share with you some of your training tips on how you teach at your karate school and some of the insights and secrets that you have that might be different. It could be for a novice or it could be for a seasoned black belt instructor, but it's always good to hear other perspectives on how you teach and things that you did that were kind of revolutionary. One of them is, why don't you talk about how when we were coming up, you started the Columbia team?
Well, what happened was we had several schools in the Columbia, South Carolina area, and at the time we were about a 250,000 population city. and we had several schools, but we were all friends and we would just work out together. We weren't competitors against each other. And so what I decided to do is instead of having a team from my school, I said, why don't we have a Columbia team? And so we got together with Colonel Fobbits, who had moved here from St. Louis, and of course your school at the University of South Carolina. You have all the University of South Carolina Gamecock fighters, and then my school from Genova Karate. And we had Howard Vanderbeck, Andy Seltzer, Pete Nanchi, Bill McLeod, all these great fighters. And we just formed what was called the Columbia team. We didn't put the name of the school on our uniforms. We had Columbia, South Carolina. We had a brush blue denim uniform with red letters. It was professionally done. And I'm telling you, when we walked into tournaments, everybody stopped. The whole tournament stopped and looked at the door as we walked in because they just knew they were in trouble. Later on, a school in Dalton, Georgia did the same thing with Ben Kiker and the United team. But we did it first. We did it in 1976, right? And it was a
Right.
wonderful time. Yeah.
And you don't hear that kind of attitude with other school owners in other cities and other states. A lot of times it's tribal and so competitive. But you were the first one who brought us all together. And I had the karate university team, and we had Tony Bell and Richard Jackson, my brother Steve Vitale. We had Michael Goldman. We had John Ork. I mean, these are all phenomenal names. And then we added Bruce Brucci had started with us. And then we had Steve Evans. So, I mean, it's a who's who. That tape is a who's who right there. It's phenomenal. So all of us owe you a thanks for putting that team together. And guess what happened? We got a chance not only to go and compete as a team, but we got to train together, and that made all of us better fighters, didn't it? Having all of us to come together.
Well, yeah,
So,
and I made friends all over the country as you did, and this is the strange thing about it. I don't know how other sports do this, but we literally would all go eat together before, have breakfast, and then have dinner that night of people that we were fighting with. Bobby Tucker,
right.
Ray McCallum, Dan Anderson, Steve Fisher, Larry Kelly, John Longstreet. I mean, we were all friends. We would go eat together, and then we would have to fight them that afternoon, and we would, I mean, we would fight. I mean, we were there to win, but there would be no animosity at all after we won or lost. So it was great. And we would share tips. I remember Dan Anderson, getting in there and training with me in a karate tournament on the side and showing me a couple of things that he thought I could do to make myself better. And he was exactly right. And I did it and it helped. So absolutely, we shared our stuff.
Well, that it goes to who you are as a person. That's fantastic.
Right.
And that's why you're a legend in the martial arts, because of that kind of attitude. And another thing, we talked about earlier your sidekick, and we had drills. And I think this is great for the audience listening. So many people focus on offensive sidekicks, offensive sidekicks. You got to slide up and hit that heavy bag or the hanging bag or whatever. And that's not the case at all. The case is most of the time, even in a self-defense situation, they're going to be attacking you. So you better be able to deliver a sidekick and stop that person from a defensive standpoint, not an offensive. Share some of the drills you would do with bags for defensive sidekick drills.
Well, I would share this drill, and this isn't something that you and I did back in the day, but I've added this to what we do. Flexibility, balance, and technique are the three parts of the sidekick that I want people to improve on. So let's take away the flexibility and the balance, and you don't have to worry about that by getting on the floor on your side with your knee up into your chest and just working the technique. And then that way you just focus on the technique. So then you can stand up, lean on a wall or lean on a chair. And this is something this part I learned from Bill Wallace, and you can practice that part. Again, you're taking away the balance part. You're just working on the flexibility part and the technique part. Then after you've improved that and worked on that drill, then you move the chair or you don't lean on the wall. And now you're working on all three, the technique, the balance, and the technique. So you're going to put it all together. Then you go to the bag and you work the standing bag where you just lift your leg and kick the bag. You're not trying to hit it hard or fast, but you're just giving yourself a target and your focus. Then from there, there's a million drills. I do a full kick, slide up kick, crossovers, jump away, defensive where the bag comes in. But I just work all the different aspects of that move. Yes, absolutely.
Right. I don't think very few people work on the jump away sidekick, and that's a phenomenal technique. And plus, having a partner just holding the shields, the bags, and having them walk towards you, and you've got to learn how to stop them in their track. And what you find out is if your knee's too high, your foot's not positioned, they just keep walking over you. So you do these drills over and over and over till you can stop them like that. So that's phenomenal. You
Well,
you were such
let me
Go
add
ahead.
this before you go on. Let me just say the two parts of a defensive sidekick. When I was fighting Chip Wright, Chicago, Chip Wright was so fast with his body punch that my defensive sidekick would have never hit him because he was too fast and my leg couldn't get up fast enough. The hand is much quicker than that sidekick. So what I would do is take my back leg and just move a foot to a half a foot away, which means his body punch, my ribs wouldn't be where his body punch was going to land. It would be a half a foot away. And then I would throw my sidekick. And I kept hitting him with that jump away sidekick. He couldn't figure it out. He thought I was faster than he was. I wasn't faster at all. I just outsmarted his body punch. That's all I did.
Yeah,
So
and so
yeah,
you combine your timing, but you also had power. You had phenomenal power. You could just stop a train with your sidekick. I just remember one time we brought you on a movie set and you were auditioning. You didn't do anything but simply you had somebody hold a target. You slid up, hit him with the sidekick. The gentleman flew back 10 feet in the air, hits the wall. The director looks at me and says, I want him in the movie because that was just your sidekick alone.
now, Bruce, now I got that from Bruce Lee, Keith. I got that from Bruce Lee. If you watch Enter the Dragon, when Bruce Lee does that in the movie Enter the
Right.
Dragon, and he kicks the guy into the audience, they show that film all the time, and that's when people go crazy.
Right.
I remember seeing that. When you brought me on the movie set, I said, I'm going to do the same move Bruce Lee did. And I did. I got the part.
Well, let me tell you, let me just share with the audience this part. I'm just not saying these words to be saying them. You were such a phenomenal, smart fighter that, I was very fortunate to be the number one fighter for a few years. I relied on you. I didn't ever said, Mike, I don't need you because I'm a top fighter. I relied on you to be my second set of eyes to help me. And on a couple occasions, but a real quick one, I just thought about it just now. We had a full contact match at a township auditorium. It was the first time ever in the South or second match ever for full contact. And I was fighting Bobby Tucker, who's phenomenal, who's just beat me so many times before I even up the score. So here it is, the first ring. I get dropped with a rich hand. I came back to the round. I lost that round. It's the only time I ever lost a round. And I remember looking at you and I said, Mike, I don't even see what he's hit me with. And I remember you telling me, he said, Keith, here's what you're doing. You're sliding up with your sidekick. He's stepping in with a rich hand. He's hitting you and taking you up. Quit sliding up. I quit sliding up. I moved more, hit him with a sidekick. I ended up winning the tournament, which probably changed my entire life, because winning that first full contact among, thousands of people there and all of her family and friends, it really was one of those key times in my life. But one of my favorite stories of all time, it highlights you as an instructor. I can tell this story 1,000 times. I had been traveling a good bit, and apparently I had missed a few tournaments where there was a great fighter named Roy Bussey. He's a friend of mine, and he's phenomenal, and he's just fantastic. So I came to your karate school, and you said, Keith, I need to work with you about fighting Roy Bussey. I said, what about? And they said, he said, he's 6'7". He's about, I don't know, 230 pounds, but he has the fastest, longest reach back fist known to mankind. And you kept on, just telling me about that. And you said, we've got to prepare you for the back fist. So you gave me a set of drills to do. Go ahead and share the drills you gave me to learn how to fight him.
I noticed this. He had a very, very long with his hand, and it was very deceptive. He brought it from a position to it down, and then all of a sudden that back fist was just like a whip. And so what I told you to do was to put your front hand up to guard your face, almost like a catcher's mitt. And so what I think people do is if you hold something up, then they're going to hit that fanatic because that's how we train in a martial arts school is to hit the target. So I just told you to put your hand there because I thought he would just go directly to that hand and to keep this arm down. And then once you took away his back fist, I didn't think he had anything else, which he didn't. His kicks weren't, exceptional. His body punch was pretty good, but I felt like if you took away that back fist, you wouldn't have any trouble with him. And if I remember correctly, Keith, you weren't real sure about it when I said it because it was very unorthodox, but you got in the ring and you did that, and he made that confused look on his face like, what am I going to do? And he threw the back fist at your hand. He hit it several times, and he got very, very frustrated. And then from there, you were able to pick him apart. But I remember him telling you it wasn't fair that you were doing that.
Right. And here's the thing. You didn't exaggerate your backhand enough. You didn't tell me put it here. You told me to put it as far as humanly possible. It's not even normal to see a fighter have his hands extended that far out like that. And you said, Keith, I'm telling you. And you always said, now listen to me. You said, listen to me. I'm telling you, he's going to hit you that back fist and you're going to be shocked about it by his speed and his length. He's so tall. So here we
Right.
go. I find out where he is. I go to a tournament. There we go. Now he's one of the top fighters in the country. He's phenomenal. So we ended up having to fight each other in like the semifinals. We bow to each other. Now he's on the other side of the ring, and the referee says fight, and he exploded across the ring with that back fist, and he almost hit me. And I'm talking about from here to your kitchen. And I was like, that's not humanly possible. How could anybody be that fast and have that? It's like, I just couldn't believe that. So I went, thank God Mike Genova worked with me. Thank God he did. I took that hand and I raised that hand. I put that hand up. And in the course of the fights, he was hitting that hand and hitting that hand. And he got so frustrated and he called timeout. And the referee goes, what's wrong? He goes, he's cheating. He's just holding his hands way out. I
Well,
laughed. I left, and the thing about it, I was able to kind of pick him apart a little bit, and we rode on the plane after that fight to go to another tournament. He sat next to me, and Tasashi, I just remember he was next to me at the same time. But I remember he sat there and he was so frustrated, and I told him the story. I said, "We heard about your back fist, and Mike trained and worked with me, and and so it was a great story." But I'm the number one fighter in the country, and I went to you for help. And you're analytical. You sit there, you can see things that sometimes a fighter in the ring can't see. So
right.
maybe that's good advice too, is to have coaches on the outside looking in and kind of giving feedback. But listen, Mike, I just want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing those training tips and instructional tips. And I know they're going to love these kind of strategies and stories. And if you guys liked it, please, I want you to check out some other episodes. Look at his in-depth episode I have with Mike Jim. I think you're going to really love that. And check out my other episodes as well. And if you like them, please like it, share it, and subscribe as usual. And then until next time, ciao.